And this is the problem when you make a deal with the Israelis. What the Israelis actually are after, if you pay attention, not just to what's happening in Gaza, but all of these theaters, all the different fronts in the war, the Israelis are very clear about what they want. And what they want is complete freedom of action. What they want is to be able to violate a country's airspace, drop bombs on that country wherever, whenever they see fit, whoever they want to target, and they want to be free from retaliation. If you follow the conflict in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Iran, in the West Bank, it is very clear that that is what they are after. When they operate in Lebanon, they want, and they call this a doctrine, they call this a political or military reality, they want to be able to fly their jets over Beirut or over Dahia, the suburbs of Beirut where Hezbollah operates. They want to fly in southern Lebanon, and they want to bomb however many times and wherever and whenever and whoever they want. They want to do that in Syria. They want to bomb Damascus. They want to occupy southern Syria. They want to bomb the Popular Mobilization Force in Iraq. They want to blow up ports in Yemen. They want to be able to fly into Iran and make Iran like Syria, which is to say that they can bomb Iran whenever they want. They destroy their air defenses, their air force. They completely control the airspace, and they effectively have air superiority. They control the ladder of escalation, and they can do whatever they want to these countries. And that is their real vision for Gaza. This is why you can't make a deal with them. This is why you can't trust them. Because let's say the deal says, all right, the IDF ground forces will withdraw to a certain line. They're still in Gaza. They still control 50% of Gaza. They control all the border crossings. They control the entire perimeter of Gaza. Nothing gets in or out without the Israelis say so. So they're going to maintain complete security control. They've quarantined, or you could say blockaded the strip, but the ground forces are not operating. They don't have tanks and bulldozers and major ground offensives happening. Maybe that's a suitable truce. That's a suitable cessation of hostilities. The Israelis have pulled back, relief is coming in, and the war has ended. But that is in no way, shape, or form what Israel actually wants. What Israel actually wants is to maintain something like a low level of conflict forever. They want to maintain a state of conflict, and this has been true throughout the history of Israel and its conflict with all of its neighbors. They're not at war, but they're also not at peace. They're not in full-fledged war, which means they have military objectives that are limited and strategic and time sensitive, but they're also not at peace, where there's zero projectiles or zero hostilities. They like to do this, whether it's with Egypt or Syria or Iran or any of these non-state actors. They like to maintain a low level of conflict where there's not a complete peace, not a total war. And why is that? It is to maintain their freedom of action so that they can constantly go in and suppress the power of their neighbors or these other groups. That's the whole point. You might think, okay, they're going to pull back. They're going to release the hostages. Peace will blossom. But if there's actual peace, what is the next logical step for Palestine? It's very obvious. If there's an actual peace, if there's an actual peace agreement, an end to hostilities, then that means that Palestine can start to rearm. They can start to refortify. They're going to expect that Israel leaves completely and they have territorial integrity. And that means no occupying army, no violations of their airspace, no raids, no special forces. There's not a threat of reservists being called up and sent in on a moment's notice. And if that happens, that means that they can rebuild their infrastructure. It means that they could petition the United Nations for statehood. It means that they might organize with the Palestinian Authority or Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Iran for that matter, and they could start to build up a sovereign government, and then they could build a security force. They could start to rearm themselves. And that's the beginning of sovereignty. And that means if they have all these things, that Israel can't really do as much to them. Because if Palestine has territorial integrity and a security force, and they're rearmed, and they're at the UN, then there's something like a tripwire. And if Israel violates their airspace or violates their territory, then there's going to be political condemnation. Then there's going to be economic consequences. Then maybe Palestine will be able to defend itself. And that's not what Israel wants, because that would imply that Israel has to coexist with its neighbors, and Israeli influence will end. They can't, at a moment's notice, deploy bulldozers in Gaza City and start destroying buildings again. And on and on and on with all these other countries. So Israel, it's actually their foreign policy that they want to be in a permanent state of war. And so much has been said about truces and ceasefires and peace agreements. These are words that matter in the UN. These are not words that matter on the ground.
I see people say, Nick Fuentes this, Nick Fuentes that, Nick Fuentes up, Nick Fuentes down. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. You know, the thing is like, I realized recently that you can only have one set of thoughts, and you can only belong in one group and not the other group. And the groups have a mindset that everyone in that group must follow. And whenever you talk to yourself like, no, I think that this person, even though they are in this other group, might be saying something important that it is worth our attention, our time, and maybe we should look into it to see whether there's a dare there. People scream at you. People say like, yeah, you are a sellout. Yeah, you are doing this. Yeah, you are doing that. Let me make an example. When I started this show, or for the longest time, I was criticizing those fake and false prophets in Africa who call themselves preachers. And I call them liars and manipulators, because they are, obviously. And I say that if there's one thing that has been a very destructive force in Africa, is organized Christianity. And I think that if we could kind of like control it, it would be better. Because how can people in their right minds would think that praying can fix the road, praying can bring security, praying can make them successful, even though they are not working towards achieving those things? How can someone in their right minds begin to think like that? So I was against preachers because I find them to be the architect of this whole nonsense way of thinking. And I was criticizing them for all their crazy talks and so on and so forth. And then I said something that got me into a lot of, by the way, when I was saying all those things, followers or I don't know, viewers love it. They appreciated me. They said that what I was saying was the correct thing, and what I was saying was exactly right, and that religion is a force for destruction, and religion has destroyed Africa like a lot, which I agree. Religion has been a very, very destructive force. That is true. But when I said that, some of these people are highly intelligent, are highly smart, are hardworking people. I mean, the preachers are hardworking people that you don't just get to be a multimillionaire or a multi-billionaire pastor without really working really, really hard. You know, you don't just get to be a popular, very influential, very successful preacher in Nigeria without you being very intelligent, without you knowing what to say, how to say, when to say. Okay? You have to master it, all these skills, before you can be able to become that successful. People in the channel read me out of context, and they thought that I was somehow appreciating those preachers or maybe condoning their bad behaviors, which wasn't what I was doing. That wasn't what I was doing. I was only acknowledging the fact that in order for someone to be successful, they have to be this or that. They have to do this or that. They have to be willing to go the extra miles. Now, someone being intelligent does not necessarily mean that he is a good person. Someone being rich and successful does not necessarily mean that he wants the best for mankind. There are things that Bill Gates is doing in Africa that I am totally against. So coming back to what Nick was saying about the whole Israel, greater Israel agenda, the thing with the Israeli government is that even though they go out attacking all their neighbors, they go out doing all kinds of things, they don't want people to call them out for those things. It's not like they are just sitting in Israel, minding their own business, and all of a sudden everyone is calling them out. No, they are actively attacking all their neighbors, while at the same time playing the victim card. According to them, they are the only democracy in the Middle East. They are the state in the Middle East that the Arabs do not like. And since all their neighbors are the Arabs, the neighbors will want to take them out. That's what they say all the time. That's what they tell us all the time. Then you ask yourself, in this whole equation, who is attacking who? In this whole equation, who is the most powerful nation militarily? Who? In this whole equation, who has the backing of America? And the answer to these questions are Israel, Israel, the state of Israel. That is just it. And this is not even propaganda, but it's a fact. But when you say this, then the Israeli government or their machinery goes outrage. They cannot take it. They don't want to take it. And they just divert the conversation into something very negative. They start calling you names. But they are the ones who are attacking their neighbors. I mean, make this make sense. Make this make sense. They are the ones who are attacking all their neighbors. And they are the ones who are playing the victim card. And someone like Trump, whose whole mantra was stopping wars, whose whole thing was bringing an end to all the wars we have, whose whole thing was that he is a president of peace, is in locksteps with the Israeli authorities. And in fact, he doesn't even see anything wrong with what is going on in Gaza. And if left to him, well, Gaza should be taken. I mean, the land should be taken away from the Palestinians and turn it into a Riviera of the Middle East. That is what he wants. According to him, well, they should just, according to him, well, just push the Palestinians away from their land and steal the land from them. That is what he wants. That is coming from a person who purposely was for peace. That is coming from a person who told us how Joe Biden and the Democrats were warmongers. And he is a person of peace. You see? You see?